They called it the land of opportunity. But the land didn't care about dreams. It didn't care about families who came with nothing but hope and a Bible. It didn't care about promises of freedom or prosperity. The land was brutal, and it demanded everything in return. The American homesteaders came with courage, and quickly discovered it wasn't enough. Because out here, comfort was a memory, and survival was the only skill that mattered. Before we dive deeper into the untold truths of the frontier, if you love stories about the real people who built America one hardship at a time, make sure to subscribe and help keep their stories alive. This channel exists to remember those the world forgot. First, the land lied. Posters promised fertile soil and endless fields. What settlers actually found was dry dust, tangled roots, and swarms of locusts waiting to devour what little managed to grow. It wasn't paradise. It was punishment, disguised as hope. Then, there was the winter. Winter wasn't just a season. It was a predator. The cold didn't knock. It clawed its way inside. Frost covered the beds, water froze solid inside buckets, and people would wake up with ice on their blankets. Many didn't wake up at all. Loneliness could kill just as surely as the cold. Neighbors were miles away, separated by a vast, unforgiving landscape. Letters could take months to arrive, if they arrived at all. Some settlers, adrift in that sea of silence, went mad before they ever saw another friendly face again. Food didn't last, and neither did teeth. Without refrigeration, meat spoiled quickly. Flour molded. Salt and smoke were the only defenses against constant hunger, and every single winter someone starved. Fire was both a friend and an enemy. It cooked their food, it warmed their homes, but it could also destroy everything. One small mistake, a single spark carried on the wind, and everything a family had spent years building could be gone in minutes. Disease came without warning. A cough, a fever, a simple cut gone bad. There were no hospitals, no doctors nearby. Sometimes the only cure was prayer, and that didn't always work. The nearest help was often 30 miles away. Think about that. If you broke a leg or went into labor, you waited. Hours turned into days, and sometimes no one came. The soil stole more than it gave. It demanded sweat and tears, and in return, often gave back only disappointment. Every failed harvest was another grave dug quietly in the backyard. Children worked like adults. At age 6, they were carrying wood. By 10, they were plowing fields. Childhood wasn't a right. It was a rumor, a story from a life left far behind. Their homes were literally built from dirt. They lived in sod houses, with walls made of mud and grass. These soddies leaked when it rained, crawled with bugs and snakes, and could collapse in a heavy storm. But they were better than nothing. And nothing was often the only alternative. In this life, death was ordinary. Burials were quick, and tears were brief. The work didn't stop just because someone was gone. There was no time to mourn. There was only time to survive. Loneliness broke marriages before hunger did. Many couples came to the frontier together for love, but most stayed together purely for survival. The endless hardship froze affection faster than the rivers. In the face of so much uncertainty, faith was often the only medicine. When bodies failed, they prayed. When crops failed, they prayed harder. It wasn't necessarily a faith in miracles. It was a faith in their own endurance, a plea for the strength to just keep going. Nature itself was ruthless. Wolves took livestock. Snakes hid in dark corners. And when tornadoes tore across the plains, the only shelter was the very dirt you stood on. But in that isolation, neighbors were lifelines. When someone's roof blew away, others came to help rebuild it. They knew that next week, it could be their own home destroyed. Community wasn't optional. It was a vital part of survival. Every birth risked a death. For every child brought into the world, a mother risked her own life. Midwives were rare, doctors were rarer, and graves for young women were far too common. Hope was a dangerous thing. It kept you alive, but it also lied to you. Every spring brought new promises of a better harvest, a better year. And every winter those promises froze. The work never, ever ended. Men plowed the fields from sunup to sundown. Women cooked, cleaned, washed, mended, milked the cows, taught the children, and tended the sick. No one rested. Ever. Water was worth more than gold. Carrying it meant walking for miles, balancing heavy buckets on your shoulders, your hands frozen and raw. Every single drop was precious. Every spill was a small tragedy. Tools broke, and so did people. Axes dulled, ropes frayed, bodies aged long before their time, worn down by the relentless labor. And still, they pushed forward. Mail was salvation. A single letter could hold an entire season of emotion. News from family, a connection to the world they'd left behind. When a letter finally arrived, people didn't just read it. They clutched it, holding a piece of their past in their hands. Pride cost lives. Many men, driven by a fierce sense of independence, refused to ask for help when they were struggling, and many women buried those men because of it. The big dreams faded slowly. The hope of finding riches and prosperity turned into the simple hope of survival. And eventually, that boiled down to just the hope for rain. The silence was deafening. There was no music, no city noise, only the sound of the wind, the creaking wood of the cabin, and your own heartbeat, reminding you that you were still alive. And yet, they did it anyway. They endured it all. Because giving up wasn't an option. They faced every loss, every storm, every heartbreak, and still, they built the world we live in today. They were the forgotten backbone of America. Their stories didn't make it into most textbooks, but their blood is still in the soil. They didn't live easy lives, but they lived meaningful ones. If you believe their stories deserve to be remembered, please subscribe and help us keep the voices of the frontier alive. Because history isn't just what we read in books, it's what they lived. Thank you for watching.